daughter's bleeding. That's her neck is cut. My daughter's neck is cut.
The situation is like, so I'm 20 years old.
All right. Took the handcuffs off you? All right, listen, we're going to get you out of here. We looked into the case a little bit further, and we're not charging you with anything. What?
This is the man who brutally murdered his girlfriend and somehow walked away free. Even he couldn't believe it when he realized he got away with it.
No one will have mercy for me. No one. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't have mercy for me either.
What you're about to hear is one of the most twisted cases we've ever come across. We actually found it through a comment on one of our videos, and once we started digging, we couldn't believe how shocking it was. And honestly, if you reach the end of this story and don't find it disturbing, you might want to check yourself, because this case is absolutely baffling. It all started around midnight on Christmas Eve of 2021. 18-year-old Ariana Tarsinski was home with her parents and her boyfriend of 9 months, 20-year-old Ramon Durst. After spending the night at a Christmas gathering with family, they returned to Ariana's house to settle in for the night. But just as her parents, Eddie and Judy, drifted off to sleep, chaos erupted.
Listen to me. What happened?
I don't know what happened.
Okay, listen to me. Sir, is someone hurt? You need to tell me yes or no. Is someone hurt?
Yes, my daughter's bleeding. That's her neck is cut. My daughter's neck is cut. What happened? She's upset. Got a knife, dude.
Who has a knife? Someone, I can't understand what's going on.
This desperate 911 call erupted when Eddie stepped out of his bedroom to a nightmare sight. Ramon gripping Ariana by her hair and neck, her throat savagely cut, both of them drenched in her blood. Within seconds, Ariana collapsed to the floor, unconscious and fighting for her life, while Ramon screamed that he had messed up. The house erupted in panic. Neighbors rushed over as shouting filled the yard. Ariana lay bleeding inside, and authorities scrambled to the scene. She was rushed to the hospital and placed on life support. Meanwhile, her devastated mother, Judy, was placed in the back of a patrol car, while Eddie and Ramon were handcuffed, briefly questioned, and then, unbelievably, released. 2 long years later, Ariana's family was left shattered and furious when the Hernando County Sheriff's Office closed the case without charges. Despite Ramon being the only person in the room that night, investigators let him walk free. So the question is, how does someone commit such a brutal crime, leave behind so much evidence, and still get away with it? This case takes us to Spring Hill, Florida, where Ariana Tarsinski grew up. Ariana was that IT girl. She was bright, ambitious, and incredibly gifted in the arts. By June of 2020, she had graduated from Central High School with high honors, an achievement that reflected her dedication and intelligence. Her parents, Eddie and Judy, described her as shy and introverted, someone who kept to herself most of the time, but that didn't stop her from having a big heart for others. Ariana was the kind of person who would step in to help when someone needed it, and she served as a role model for her younger sister, 12-year-old Isabella, who she adored. The sisters were close, often spending long hours together. Ariana's passion, though, was art. Whether sketching or experimenting with makeup, she poured herself into creative expression. She was free-spirited, a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, just beginning to set her own path. After graduation, Ariana celebrated new milestones. She got her driver's license, landed her first job at Hobby Lobby, and was preparing to start college the following January. To her family, it felt like she was stepping into the future she had always dreamed of. Meanwhile, in 2020, 20-year-old Ramon Durst moved into the area from New Jersey. At the time, he was reportedly living with his grandmother in Ocala and working in Orlando as an electrician's apprentice. Ocala is about 70 miles north of Spring Hill. Ariana met Ramon through friends, and before long, they started dating. Ramon became Ariana's first serious boyfriend. Eddie recalled that, in the limited time he spent with him, Ramon seemed like a nice kid. By the time the holiday season of 2021 arrived, Ariana and Ramon had been together for about 9 months. Outwardly, the relationship seemed normal. Nothing unusual, just the ups and downs of a young couple. And on Christmas Eve 2021, Ariana and Ramon joined her parents for a family gathering. After celebrating, they returned to the Tarsinski home. Everyone began winding down for the night. Isabella went to her room to watch a movie before falling asleep. Eddie and Judy went to their bedroom, and Ariana and Ramon went into hers. It should have been a quiet holiday night, but just around midnight, everything unraveled. Eddie was jolted awake by Raymond's frantic screams, calling out his name. Rushing into Ariana's room, Eddie was confronted by a nightmare. The door was open, and Ramon stood there gripping Ariana by her hair and neck. Blood poured from a deep wound in her throat, spilling from her mouth. She could not speak. In the blink of an eye, Ariana collapsed to the ground, motionless, while Ramon shouted that he had messed up. Panicked, Eddie scrambled for his phone to dial 911, his voice breaking as he begged for help. The noise woke Isabella, who cautiously stepped out of her room. She saw the horrific sight of Ramon dragging her older sister by the hair into their parents' bedroom. The shouting grew louder, so loud that a neighbor named Thomas, who was 4 houses down, rushed outside after calling police. By the time Thomas reached the Tarsinski property, the argument had spilled into the front yard. Ramon was drenched in Ariana's blood. Eddie was screaming, "You killed my daughter," and Ramon was shouting back, "What does it matter? I'm going to jail anyway." Thomas watched in disbelief as Ramon charged at Eddie, covered in blood and acting out of control. Fearing what might happen, Thomas struck Ramon hard across the head, but he didn't go down. It took another hit before Ramon finally fell, still screaming things like, "Shoot me, I really messed up, I'm going to jail for a long time." By then, first responders were arriving. Ariana, gravely wounded, was rushed to Bayonet Point Hospital in Hudson, Florida, where doctors fought to save her life. At the same time, police detained nearly everyone in the house. Eddie was forced to his knees with a rifle pointed at him before being handcuffed. Judy, who police noted was heavily intoxicated, was placed in the back of a patrol car. Raymond, blood-soaked and still yelling, was also handcuffed and taken into custody. Dashcam footage from that arrest would later become an important piece of this case, though frustratingly, it's often overlooked in the larger investigation.
How are you? Can I just say something? Can we have a little back and forth real quick?
Let's have back and forth. Go ahead.
My life's over right now.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean. You see what the situation is.
I don't know what the situation is. I was outside with you.
Okay. What do you think the situation is?
I don't know. I don't want to assume.
You see what I'm covered in?
Okay. What happened?
I don't know. I can't. I'm not going to say something because I know.
Well, I see you the dad out there fighting, so I don't know.
Look, all right, you don't know, but I know.
Okay. Well,
the situation is like, my life's over. I'm 20 years old. I love that. I love it. This shit just fucking Christmas.
Alright, Jose.
I fucking
I couldn't hear you.
I fucking sat on that wet bed and it's all over.
You slept in the bed.
I slept on the bed. I slipped on the bed. Look, we got a whole ride.
In this very dashcam footage, it becomes painfully clear that Ramon didn't have a shred of remorse. Not once did he mention Ariana, the young woman bleeding out because of what he had done to her. Instead, he whined about himself, about how he might be treated in prison, about the abuse he thought he might face behind bars. It was all me, 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 like the world was supposed to feel sorry for him. And if that isn't the definition of a narcissist, I don't know what is. While Ariana was clinging to life, his only concern was finding someone to talk to, someone to cry to, like a child who just got caught. He even admitted to killing her, yet still acted as if he were the victim of the story. It's pathetic, it's insulting, and it shows exactly what kind of person he really was.
switch to?
Can you let me know, like, how, like, what's gonna happen? Like, we leave here and then what?
22, 24, one of the units on the scene.
I go to the police station, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then after the police station, after I arrive at the police station, then what happens?
I don't know. It depends on whatever went on here.
Does it?
So you say you're from Ocala?
Yeah.
What's your name?
I told you.
No, you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I did. I said Ramon Calderon Durst.
I can't hear you.
Ramon Calderon Durst. I mean, it's gonna be known sooner or later.
Okay, where do you need to know the car?
What's that?
Hold on one second.
How do you feel right now?
What do you mean, how do I feel right now?
Just in general?
A little confused.
I know you just want information with me right now.
Huh?
I know you just want information, so can prosecute.
We'll have people that want to get information from you.
Yes, I understand that. That's why I don't, like, I'd rather just talk to them.
Okay, then you can do that.
But I'd just rather talk to you right now.
It sounds like you just want to talk to somebody right now.
Yes.
I got you. I'm listening.
Can we do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
I want to cry.
Huh?
I want to cry.
Go ahead, cry.
No one will have mercy for me. No one. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't have mercy for me either. It's like ridiculous, you know? You know, like, no way life this is fucking ridiculous. Oh. I just want a hug. Hug a man. I don't deserve one. I'm going to get raped in prison. Why do they do that? Why is it so brutal and violent? I deserve it. Can't imagine my father. Can't imagine my mother. Can't imagine the family.
Throughout the footage, Ramon babbled nonsense, stumbling over his own words. It sounded like a man desperately trying to weave a story while already drowning in guilt. And yet, in between these fragmented sentences, he showed exactly who he was. He wasn't mourning Ariana. He wasn't begging for her to live. Instead, he was worrying about himself, about prison, about abuse, about what federal facility he might be sent to. That is the very definition of a narcissist. Even in the aftermath of taking a life, his only concern was what was going to happen to him. Meanwhile, Ariana's mother, Judy, who police described as intoxicated, was placed in the back of a patrol car. The dash cam footage from her perspective is gut-wrenching. You can hear her sobbing, begging God to save her daughter, pleading with officers for information. At one point, she asked to use the bathroom, explaining that she couldn't hold it much longer. Instead of being treated with compassion, she was told flatly, "It is what it is." Ultimately, Judy was forced to relieve herself in the back of the car, humiliated, broken, and desperate to know whether Ariana was still alive. Her cries of, "Please God, save my Ariana," echo through the recording, a mother begging for mercy in a nightmarish situation.
Please, please, please. Let Ariana be okay. God, please let her. Let her. Let her. Okay.
Going back to the dash cam footage of Raymond, it's impossible to ignore how disturbingly wrong the officer's behavior was that night. From the very beginning, they treated him not as a suspect, but almost as though he were a victim himself. They let him cry, comforted him, and spoke to him with sympathy, while Ariana's devastated parents, her mother Judy and her father Eddie, were treated like criminals. Judy, intoxicated and broken with grief, was locked in the back of a patrol car and denied the basic dignity of using the bathroom. Eddie, who had just witnessed his daughter bleeding out, was forced to his knees at gunpoint and handcuffed. Yet Raymond, covered in Ariana's blood, was allowed to ramble freely, never once read his Miranda rights, never once warned that his words could be used against him. In fact, he asked the officers more questions than they ever asked him, an upside-down reality that no reasonable person could miss. This naturally raises questions. Why was he given such special treatment? Why was he shielded from pressure, almost protected? When he was brought into the station, instead of facing interrogation, Ramon was casually told he would not be charged. Officers explained they would simply take a few photos and a DNA swab, just in case he turned out to be the victim. Imagine that. A young woman had just been found brutally stabbed, her blood all over him. Witnesses heard his panicked confessions, yet he was being told that perhaps he was the one who needed protection. It is no wonder that when Ramon realized he was about to walk free, he looked stunned, even confused. Many people have speculated about why this happened. Some argue that maybe he was quietly questioned later with his lawyer present, or that the officers were just following procedure by treating him politely. But those explanations don't hold up when you look deeper. Community members have come forward with troubling claims that Raymond's family were major political donors in Florida, particularly in the very county where this tragedy took place. Allegedly, they had influence and connections with local officials. If that is true, it paints a very dark picture, because powerful people can and do get away with things ordinary citizens never could. And in this case, it would explain why what should have been a clear-cut homicide investigation was instead handled like a cover-up. Still, even if you strip away the speculation and just look at the facts, the mishandling is undeniable. The dashcam evidence is public. Anyone can watch it on YouTube and hear Ramon half admit his guilt. Witnesses confirm they heard him screaming that he messed up. Ariana's blood was literally soaking his clothes. Neighbors saw him dragging her by the hair. Even Ramon himself seemed shocked when officers told him they wouldn't press charges. Yet somehow, all of that wasn't enough. Authorities offered one justification that has left many people speechless. In Ariana's bedroom, investigators found a drawing she had made months earlier of a girl with her throat cut and blood pouring from her mouth. This artwork, they argued, suggested that Ariana might have inflicted the injury on herself, or that it was somehow an accident. It is almost unbelievable that such a claim was ever taken seriously. Ariana was a passionate young artist, known for drawing dark and graphic images. To twist her artwork into evidence of self-inflicted harm shows just how desperate authorities were to excuse Raymond. More importantly, the facts don't line up. Ariana didn't stab herself. Ramon was caught dragging her body into another room. He was heard shouting, "I messed up." He was literally drenched in her blood. How could anyone call that self-defense? What this case shows us is not just one young woman's life stolen, but a justice system that failed at every turn. Officers comforted the killer while punishing the grieving family. They ignored direct evidence and downplayed confessions. They hid behind flimsy explanations, like a teenager's sketchbook, instead of pursuing justice. And in the end, a man who should have faced trial walked away free. And if that wasn't enough to make your blood boil, the autopsy only deepened the frustration. Just 3 days after Ariana's death, the medical examiner released the official report. It could not have been clearer. Her manner of death was ruled a homicide, and the cause was complications from a stab wound to the neck. The report specifically stated that she had been stabbed by others. In any reasonable investigation, this should have been the moment when charges were filed, when the lone person in the room with her, Raymond, was held accountable. Yet shockingly, nothing happened. He was not rearrested. He was not interrogated. He was not charged. It was as if Ariana's life meant nothing, as if her death was destined to be buried under excuses and paperwork. For the Tarsinski family, time became torture. They clung to hope that justice would come, but instead, the days dragged on. Weeks turned into months, months into years, and still, no movement in the case. Then, in August of 2023, more than a year and a half after Ariana's murder, the family received the news no grieving parent should ever hear. A letter from the state attorney's office coldly informed them that the case was being closed. No charges would be filed. The reason? Prosecutors claimed there was not enough evidence to prove mens rea, Latin for guilty mind. Without proof of criminal intent, they said, Ramon could not be charged. But how much more proof of a guilty mind could anyone possibly need? The dash cam video alone was filled with Raymond's incriminating statements. He admitted his life was over. He said he was going to jail. He screamed, "I messed up." Witnesses heard him repeat those words while Ariana bled to death at his feet. These weren't slips of the tongue. They were what legal experts call spontaneous admissions, the kind of raw statements that reveal consciousness of guilt. Yet investigators brushed them aside, treating his words as meaningless ramblings instead of evidence. Several experts who later reviewed the case were stunned by the mishandling. Retired NYPD Detective John Baeza was blunt. The dashcam contained multiple admissions of guilt, enough for probable cause, enough to justify an arrest. Dr. David Thomas, a criminologist and former officer, went through the case file and discovered something even more alarming. Nearly half of the 370-plus page file wasn't real evidence at all. It was filler, including copies of social media posts, news articles, and even emails from Eddie. In other words, instead of building a case, investigators seemed more focused on appearances, on how the public would view their work, than on seeking justice for Ariana. Dr. Thomas also called out the cruel way Judy was treated, forced to sit in the back of a patrol car humiliated and ignored, despite doing nothing wrong. And then there were the oversights that still leave people shaking their heads. Critical pieces of evidence were allegedly left behind at the crime scene. Knives, a blood-soaked bedsheet imprinted with Raymond's handprint, and even his wallet. Items that could have bolstered the case against him were either ignored or dismissed. Hernando County officials insisted their work was thorough, but the reality tells a different story. Even Ariana's 12-year-old sister, Isabella, gave deputies a statement that night, which should have shattered any doubt about what happened. She told investigators that she had been in her room when the sound of arguing woke her, though she couldn't make out the exact words. When she stepped out to see what was happening, she witnessed something no child should ever see. Ramon dragging Ariana by her hair into her parents' bedroom. That single testimony alone painted Ramon as violent, aggressive, and controlling in the moments before Ariana collapsed. Yet, like so much of the evidence, her statement was brushed aside, as though the eyewitness account of a child didn't matter. Adding to the injustice, Ariana's murder barely made headlines. Local coverage was sparse, and without national attention, there was little public pressure on officials to act. ABC produced one strong report that brought her story to light, but beyond that, much of the push for justice came from independent journalists, true crime creators, and ordinary people outraged by what they learned. For Ariana's family, the lack of media attention has been another devastating blow. They have had to watch the man responsible for her death live free, while officials tell them the case is closed unless new evidence magically appears. Additionally, throughout the entire investigation, Sheriff Al Ninhuis never once called the family or met with them in person to express condolences. This was unusual because historically, Sheriff Nienhuis had made it a practice to appear at homicide scenes, even going live on Facebook to give statements to the public. But for Ariana's case, he was silent. To Eddie and Judy, that silence spoke volumes. Adding insult to injury, the sheriff's office seized Ariana's cell phone to search for evidence. When Judy later asked to have it returned, she made repeated requests to Detective Kraft, explaining that she didn't have the passcode and needed it unlocked. After weeks of waiting, Kraft finally allowed her to retrieve the phone, but it was still locked. Outraged by what felt like yet another dismissal of her pleas, Judy texted the detective, reminding him of his promise. His response shocked her. "Wow!" "You're welcome. I had no idea it was locked. But our business is finished." That short, cold reply hit the Tarsinskis like a punch in the chest. Judy shared the message on Facebook, writing, "I wanted to repost this so everyone can see how we have been treated after the loss of our daughter Ariana. Where is the compassion, the professionalism, the humanity, or the oath police officers take to save lives?" Eddie, furious, also posted, "What a piece of garbage. How do you even call yourself a detective? She was our world, not some business." But beyond the outrage, that message raised an even bigger concern. When Detective Kraft said, "Our business is finished," was that an unintentional admission that the case had been closed all along? Was the insistence that the investigation was still open simply a tactic to withhold documents from the public and avoid accountability? When reporters from Our News reached out to the sheriff's office, officials doubled down, repeating the same line, that it was still an open investigation. But for Eddie, Judy, and many others in the community, that statement rings hollow. More and more, people believe Sheriff Nienhuis is deliberately keeping the case labeled open until after the 2024 election, shielding himself and his department from embarrassment. Former homicide investigators and attorneys who have reviewed the evidence agree there is no reasonable explanation for why Ramon Durst was not arrested on the night Ariana was murdered. But perhaps the most painful part is remembering who Ariana was and who she could have been. At just 18 years old, she was stepping into her future. She had dreams of becoming a mortician, a career she was serious about pursuing, and she had every intention of enrolling in classes to make that dream real. She was a gifted artist who poured her creativity into drawings and makeup, an older sister who adored and guided her younger sibling, a daughter who made her parents proud. She was a friend who loved deeply and gave generously. Ariana had so much life ahead of her, life that was stolen in the most brutal and senseless way. The community and Ariana's family have never stopped fighting for justice, and neither should we. Sharing her story is one of the most powerful ways to keep her memory alive and to push for the accountability she deserves. Every time her case is spoken about, every time it is shared, the pressure builds for the truth to finally come out and for the person responsible to face justice. Special thanks to Van Manded for bringing this case to our attention through a comment. It's a reminder of how powerful this community really is. If you know of another case that deserves to be covered, don't hesitate to share it in the comments. And while the circumstances surrounding Ariana Petarsinski's death are completely different, both her case and the one you're about to hear share a chilling thread, an overwhelming sense that something is terribly wrong, yet no real justice ever followed. Despite the signs, despite the questions, authorities offered conclusions that left families and the public haunted. So now, let's revisit a case that continues to stir outrage and heartbreak across the country: the mysterious death of Tamla Horsford.
Forsyth County 911.
Hi, yes, I need an ambulance.
Hey, have y'all checked to see if she's breathing?
She's not moving one bit. She's not breathing.
The deceased woman mentioned in this 911 call is Tamla Horsford, a 40-year-old mother of 5. Forsyth County, Georgia is a place haunted by its racist past. When Tamla, the only black woman at an all-white adult sleepover, was found dead, the inconsistencies in the case confused the entire nation. We began seeing corruption, cover-ups, contradicting stories, and evidence that was never taken into account. Today, her grieving family still searches for answers. Was Tamla's death a terrible accident or something far more sinister? Today's case is a mystery that refuses to be buried. Let's get started and see why this case still interests so many people. Tamla George Horsford was born on October 10, 1978, in Kingstown, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Everybody who knew her called her Tam for short. When she was 11 years old, her family moved to the Bronx, New York. But later in life, Tamla moved to Florida. There she met and married a man named Leander Horsford. Leander already had a daughter when they met. But together Tamla and Leander had 5 more children, all boys. The people around her said that Tamla was a great mom and wife. She had a fun personality, loved to dance, and was very lively. You could often see her cheering for her boys at their football games with a bullhorn, and her kids could always count on her to be there for them. In 2013, Tamla and her family moved to Cumming, Georgia. Leander's job was the reason for the move. The county they moved to, Forsyth County, had a troubled history with race relations. Back in 1912, over 1,000 black residents were forcefully expelled from the town. Today, Forsyth County is 96% white, and it is still considered by some to be a sundown town. That is, a white community that intentionally prevents black people and other minorities from residing there. On November 3, 2018, Tamla made dinner for her husband and children. After dinner, she left to go to a birthday party for her new friend, Jean Myers. Jean invited a group of moms she knew from the Youth Football League, and the plan was for everyone to spend the night so no one would drive home after drinking. Keep in mind that Tamla knew some of the women at the party, but not very well, so she wasn't entirely sure about going there at first. She barely even knew Jean, but she decided to go anyway, only because she didn't want to let Jean down. Little did Tamla know, this decision would lead to her demise. Tamla arrived at the party around 8:30 p.m. She brought a small overnight bag and a bottle of tequila as a gift for Jean, but it turned out that Jean didn't like tequila and didn't want the bottle. None of the other women at the party wanted any tequila either, so Tamla ended up drinking the tequila herself while the other women had different drinks. Now, the party was supposed to be just for women, but Jean's boyfriend, Jose Barrera, and another woman's husband, Tom Smith, decided to stay too. While the women drank, talked, and watched the LSU-Alabama football game upstairs in the living room, Jose and the other husband watched football in Jean's basement. So, in total, there were 9 women and 2 men at the party, and 8 of these people planned to spend the night. Tamla was the only smoker at the party, so she often went outside to the porch to have a cigarette. She also smoked some marijuana that night. The host, Jean, teased her about this and said Tamla was like a female Bob Marley. She also reminded Tamla that her boyfriend, Jose, worked for the court and didn't like marijuana use. 2 women left the party at 10:30 p.m. because they didn't have overnight babysitters. Around midnight, the rest of the group started playing a game called Cards Against Humanity in the living room. They played for about an hour because it was already very late. After the game, everyone started cleaning up and getting ready for bed. Around this time, Tamla video called her husband and older daughter. This would be the last time she ever spoke to her family. For some reason, she also decided she wanted to drive home. She thought she hadn't drank much and didn't want to stay overnight anymore. We don't know the exact reason why she changed her mind. The other women at the party tried to convince her to stay because they didn't want her to drive after drinking, so Tamla stayed over to calm everyone's nerves. By 1:30 in the morning, most people had gone to bed. The party host, Jean, and her boyfriend, Jose, also went to bed around this time. When they left, Tamla was still in the kitchen, eating a bowl of gumbo, and she told them she was going to have another cigarette outside. The next morning, Madeline Lombardi, Jean's aunt, who also lived there, looked out into the backyard while making her coffee. when she saw something deeply upsetting. Tamla was lying face down in the grass under the deck. Madeline ran upstairs to tell Jean and Jose what she had seen, but before she did that, she decided to pray next to Tamla's body before trying to help Tamla or call for emergency help. At 8:59 a.m., someone finally called 911.
Okay, what's going on?
We had people over last night when we were drinking. Most of us went to bed. One of them stayed on the balcony. She was drinking, and we just went outside, and she's laying face down in the backyard.
Many people have noted the calm demeanor in the calls. On the 911 call, you can hear Jose telling the operator that he sees a small cut on Tamla's wrist. He said he doesn't know if Tamla did this to herself or if someone else did it.
I'm completely not sure.
Okay, and that's the only blood that you would see?
That's what I can see without moving her over. I haven't seen her face.
Do you know if she was suicidal at all?
I have no clue. I've met her one other time. You know, like my girlfriend said, people were over last night. She was her birthday party. We're not the woman that we believe to be deceased, but it's my girlfriend's birthday party. Instead of having everybody go out, she had everyone stay in. And she was the last one I saw before everybody. I mean, everybody was typically put off to bed, and she was the last one in the kitchen. She was just either waiting around for a ride or waiting until the morning.
Okay. How far is the where she would have fell from? How far is the deck from the ground?
I would probably say maybe 20 feet.
Okay.
You know, 20 feet from where your feet would be on the railing. The railing itself is maybe 3.5, 4 feet.
Okay.
The police arrived at Jean's house at 9:07 a.m., but when they got there, they said Tamla was already dead. The police then called everyone who had been at the party the night before. In total, they talked to 30 people. Doctors did an autopsy on Tamla's body, and they found that Tamla had several strange injuries from being hit or falling. They also found that she had a lot of alcohol in her blood. Her blood alcohol level was .238, which is almost 3 times the legal limit allowed for driving. But even before the autopsy was concluded, the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office started thinking Tamla's death was just an accident. They thought she might have fallen from the outdoor deck on the second floor of the house. At first, the police told Tamla's husband, Leander, that Tamla had tripped over some garden edging and fallen on the ground, leading to her death. Jean's aunt, who lives in the house, said she had stumbled over this edging before as well. Not only that, but the police also thought that because Tamla had been drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana, she might have been confused or dizzy. All of these factors would make it more likely for her to fall. The police think Tamla died around 1:57 in the morning. That's when the security system showed that the back door was opened and never closed again. On February 20th, 2019, the police officially closed the case. They said Tamla's death was an accident. But there are still many questions about what really happened to Tamla that night. The officials said that Tamla's injuries didn't look like someone had hurt her on purpose. They said, "It was a party. People were drinking. She was drinking. Most people at the party had gone to bed by then, and she was alone on the deck." But Tamla's husband didn't believe this. He said Tamla could drink half a bottle of tequila and still dance in her high heels, so there was no way she was so drunk that she accidentally fell off the porch. About 2 weeks after Tamla died, another party guest named Stacy Smith talked to the police. She also didn't think Tamla could have fallen off the deck by accident. Stacy said she had been on that deck many times before, and even tried to test if someone who was drunk could lean over the railing to throw up and fall. But no matter how she tried, she couldn't figure out how Tamla could have gone over the railing. Stacy also said that Tamla wasn't acting very drunk or sick that night, even though the tests showed she had a lot of alcohol in her blood. Photos and videos from the party show Tamla smiling and happy. Even though she was drinking tequila, She didn't seem very drunk in the pictures, videos, or what other people remembered. At first, Jean, who owned the house, was so sure that Tamla didn't fall from the balcony that she posted about it on social media. But this changed when Tamla's friend, Michelle Graves, started posting on social media too. Michelle said she thought people at the party knew more than they were telling because things about Tamla's death just didn't make sense. Michelle told the media, "They're totally lying. They're not off the hook because this was not an accident." A few weeks later, some of the people who were at the party, including Jean, sued Michelle. They said Michelle had hurt their reputations with 13 Facebook posts. They claimed these posts falsely accused them of killing Tamla or helping to cover it up. But Michelle said she only posted facts that she had checked in Tamla's case file. When Tamla was found, Jean and Jose said she was lying face down with her arms by her sides and her palms facing up. But when the first responders arrived, Tamla's position was different. Her left arm was stretched out and bent at the elbow with her fist closed tight. Her face wasn't turned to either side. It looked like she had fallen straight forward onto the ground. This position seemed very unnatural. Even the police officers who came to the scene were confused about how Tamla's body was positioned. One officer said, "If you try to catch yourself with your left hand and there's nothing to grab, you'd spin around, you know. It doesn't make sense. It's like she fell straight down." People also noticed several cuts and scrapes on Tamla's hands and arms. Some wondered if these might be defensive wounds, which could mean Tamla had been in a fight before she went over the balcony. Jose told an investigator on November 7th that he had checked Tamla for a pulse, which might explain why her arm was moved. But later, when talking to a special agent, Jose said this wasn't true. When the agent mentioned the earlier report, Jose called it complete bullshit and said he didn't move her arm or check for a pulse. Jose did tell the police that he found an unlit cigarette and a lighter on the deck before he saw Tamla's body. But because the police thought Tamla's death was just an accident, they didn't check these items for fingerprints. They also didn't protect the area where Tamla was found, which means important evidence might have been lost or changed. In the first 911 call, Jose had said there were security cameras pointed at the backyard, but it turned out all the cameras had dead batteries and hadn't recorded anything. This detail seemed a little too convenient to some people. Tamla's family and friends had other questions too. They wondered why nobody tried to do CPR on Tamla when she was found. Even the police didn't try to help her. They told the ambulance not to come, and Tamla was just put in a body bag and taken away. It seemed like no one made any sort of last-ditch effort to try to save Tamla's life. Many people wondered if Tamla's race played a role in her death. She was the only black woman at a party full of white women. Some thought that if the situation had been reversed, if one white woman had died at a party with mostly black women, the police would have treated it as a crime scene right away. As we've mentioned before, the county where this happened, Forsyth County, has a bad history of racism. Fortunately, Tamla's case became famous across the country, and many people demanded justice for her. Many big celebrities, including 50 Cent and T.I., said they didn't think Tamla's death was just an accident. It wasn't until over 600,000 people signed a petition that Sheriff Freeman asked the Georgia Bureau of Investigations to look at Tamla's case again in July 2020. The police found more records of doors opening and closing around the time they think Tamla died. The garage door opened at 1:40 a.m. and wasn't closed until the next morning. The last person who said they saw Tamla alive, Bridget Fuller, told police that she and Tamla walked to the front door together when Bridget's husband came to pick her up. Bridget said she hugged Tamla before leaving. This matches a door chime at 1:47 a.m. But Bridget's husband said he only saw his wife at the door, not Tamla. All these things that didn't add up made people very suspicious. In December 2018, Jose was fired from his job as a pretrial officer. This was because he used his job to look at documents about Tamla's death that he wasn't supposed to see. People also said he leaked confidential information about her case. But Jose said he didn't do anything illegal and that all the information he looked at was public. Furthermore, When Tamla's body was sent for an autopsy, only 5 photos were taken. This is very unusual for a death investigation. Normally, many more photos would be taken, especially with the kind of injuries Tamla had. Tamla's father thought this was because the police were focusing on investigating Tamla herself, not looking for someone who might have hurt her. There were many questions that didn't make sense. How could Tamla, who had a lot of alcohol in her system, still seem in control, but somehow fall over a 14-foot railing? Why didn't anyone in the house hear her fall or scream? What happened when the door was opened just before 2 a.m., and why wasn't it closed until the next morning? For over a year, Tamla's family fought to have her case looked at again. They didn't believe her death was an accident. They also asked for a second autopsy.
We were all just drinking, and we played Cards Against Humanity.
But her family insists that narrative doesn't solve the puzzle.
You get all this information, and you go, wait, nothing makes sense here.
Ralph Fernandez, the attorney for Tamla's husband, says he's gone through the evidence, every interview, document, and scene photo. So has Tamla's father and friends like Michelle Graves.
Why not just let this go?
I cannot let this go because I know that what they said did not happen to her.
In June 2020, the GBI finally conducted a second autopsy. They found that Tamla had injuries to her head, neck, body, and limbs. These included scrapes on her face, 4 types of bleeding in her skull and brain, her right wrist was out of place, cuts on her arms and legs, a broken neck, and a tear in the right side of her heart. The GBI also found that Tamla had a lot of alcohol in her blood, just like the first autopsy showed. But they also found Xanax in her system, and no one knew how it got there. Tamla's family hired another medical expert for a third opinion. This expert said that Tamla's wrist wasn't just out of place, but had a compound fracture, meaning the bone was sticking out through the skin.
I know this was a homicide. The problem is I can't pin it on anybody because I don't have a badge and I don't have a gun.
This is important because there wasn't much blood found where Tamla was discovered. This makes people wonder where and how she got this injury. The little blood that was found on Tamla's sleeve was on the opposite side of her injury and seemed to have happened after she died. Interestingly, no medical examiner found any big injuries to Tamla's skull and bones. The fact that there was no bruising on the broken bones in her skull makes people question whether she really died from falling from the second floor. When the police talked to everyone who was at the party, they got photos and videos from their phones. But they didn't take the phones or download all the data. They also didn't legally request to look at the partygoers' phones for evidence. This didn't happen until the GBI got involved. By then, at least 2 people had new phones, and detectives found out that some text messages and pictures on some of the phones had been deleted. During their investigation, the GBI found what seemed to be lies from some people who were at the party. One woman, Bridget Fuller, who had severe anxiety, told police her medication made it impossible for her to lie. This claim is unusual, as there's no known medication that prevents lying. Bridget said she always wore a necklace with her Xanax because she depended on it so much. She told investigators she knew it was a controlled substance and hadn't shared it. But when the GBI looked at everyone's phone messages, they found this wasn't true. Bridget had shared some kind of medication with a few people before the party, and she gave some women Xanax at the party. When asked about this, Bridget admitted it was true, but said she didn't give any to Tamla because she didn't know her well. However, Tamla had Xanax in her system, and no one knew why. It's worth noting that Bridget didn't seem to like Tamla much, and it appeared none of the women really did. One of the main detectives on Tamla's case, Michael Christian, left the police department during an internal investigation. The investigation found he had broken his oath of office and neglected his duty. The GBI talked to 2 women who said Michael Christian had told them details about Tamla's case. One ex-girlfriend said he shared Tamla's toxicology report with her and thought Tamla's body had been moved. Another woman said Michael sent her a photo of Tamla's body at the scene. This woman said Michael was so obsessed with the case that he would have panic attacks about it. According to the ex-girlfriend, Michael thought Tamla's death was an accident, but didn't think she fell from a 14-foot balcony. She also said Michael told her he found calls between Jose Barrera and the lead investigator, Andy Kalin, before the 911 call, and he thought maybe Andy helped the partygoers come up with a story. But Jose and Andy both said this wasn't true. The GBI got 3 screenshots of Snapchat messages Michael sent to a girlfriend. In one message sent the day Tamla was found dead, he seemed to be joking about talking to Tamla's husband. The message was very insensitive, making light of Tamla's death and her children's loss. Michael even called Tamla the porch lady at one point. In another message, Michael made disturbing jokes about racism and murder cover-ups. The Horsford family's lawyer thinks part of this message might be referring to Tamla's friend, Michelle Graves. When the GBI asked Michael about these messages, he admitted sending them, but said they were sarcasm and in bad taste. He denied ever sending photos of the crime scene. A friend of Tamla's husband, Stephen Reynolds, told police he was worried Tamla's death might have been sexually motivated. He claimed that 2 couples at the party were swingers and thought someone might have tried to initiate something sexual with Tamla. However, this idea wasn't mentioned anywhere else in the investigation, including in interviews with the couples Stephen named. Instead, the GBI seemed to focus a lot on Tamla's husband, Leander. They searched his phone and social media accounts but didn't find anything suspicious. On July 28, 2021, the GBI finished their investigation. They decided not to pursue any criminal charges. This means Tamla's death is still officially considered an accident, and no one has been arrested or charged. The most heartbreaking part of this story comes from Leander's experience at the funeral home. When he went to see Tamla before the funeral, he couldn't even recognize her. Here's what he said. "When I went into the funeral home, I probably scared everyone because I yelled, 'What the fuck?' as loud as I could. I saw my wife looking like she had black shoe polish all over her face. I flipped out and told them to take it off. They said they had to cover up the bruising, but you don't cover bruising with black shoe polish. My wife is my color, but her skin was so dark, like blackface. I was really angry and was going to close the casket for the viewing." Leander's sons wanted to see their mother, but he was worried about how it would affect them. His oldest son insisted, so Leander let him come in. Leander said, "We both just stood there and looked at her. Neither of us cried because it didn't look anything like her." He described how Tamla's wrist was bent oddly, and you could see where the bone had stuck out. When his son came in, the boy said, "Dad, that doesn't look like an accident." This made Leander decide to leave the casket open, saying, "If a 12-year-old can walk up and say it doesn't look like an accident, leave the casket open." Tamla Horsford's funeral was held at McDonald and Son Funeral Home in Cumming, Georgia on Friday, November 9th, 2018. What do you think? Was Tamla's death an accident, or was there something suspicious going on? Do you think there's a massive cover-up involved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more videos like this, please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more true crime videos. See you in the next one.